Unit 6, Absolutism versus Constitutionalism, the Glorious Revolution, Part 2. In the closing years of Charles II's reign from 1678 to 85, the Whigs and the Tories grappled furiously without resorting to arms, a notable step towards the domestication of party politics. The Whigs got their big chance in 1678 when a shifty character named Titus Oates announced to the world that he had uncovered a horrendous popish plot. According to Oates, the Jesuits, with a papal blessing, were planning to assassinate Charles II, massacre the English Protestants, and install the king's brother James on the throne. Oates had hit home with one glaring mistake of Charles. Although he had a throng of mistresses, he had sired several bastards and no legitimate children. The next heir to the throne would be his brother James, who was extremely unpopular because he was a zealous Catholic. For 2 years, the country was swept by anti-Catholic hysteria. Charles knew that Oates was a liar, but he dared not deny his story, in the chance that someone to uncover the real popish plot that he had engaged in with Louis XIV. After 1681, however, Charles simply ruled without a parliament. The rising custom revenues, coupled with Louis XIV's subsidy, permitted him to live without parliamentary taxation. When Charles died in 1685, there was no truly effective opposition to James' succession. James II is generally regarded as the worst king in English history. In attempting to reverse a whole century of history, few kings have failed so spectacularly. He dismissed his brother's Tory ministers and appointed Catholics wherever possible to all government posts, down to the level of Justice of the Peace. Since there were very few English Catholics to draw from, the appointees were usually untried and incompetent. His policy of toleration was undermined by his outright desire to return England to Rome. Thus, most non-Anglican Protestants distrusted him and all Anglicans hated him. The breaking point came in June of 1688, when the king ordered the Anglican clergy to read his toleration decree from the pulpits. 7 bishops dared to protest. James put them in the Tower of London and ordered them tried for sedition. To his amazement, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty. In the same month, James' queen bore him a son. And according to the rules of royal inheritance, this infant immediately took precedence over the king's 2 grown daughters, Mary and Anne, both Protestants. James now had the Catholic heir that his subjects were dreading. However, Mary, his elder daughter, was married to William III of Orange. After the birth of his son, Tories and Whigs were allied against James II. The king was more isolated than Charles I was in 1640, but no one wanted another full-scale rebellion. In the Revolution of 1688 and 89, called the Glorious or Bloodless Revolution, no new Cromwell rose up to crusade against the Stuarts. Instead, a united parliament and nobility discreetly invited William of Orange to bring a foreign army to England and restore their religion and liberty. William accepted the invitation, not because he readily wanted to be king in England, but more so to pull England into his coalition against Louis XIV. Poor James was paralyzed by the magnitude of the conspiracy against him. In November of 1688, William landed his army unopposed in southwestern England. Despite the king's flurry of desperate last-minute concessions, the chief men in the country supported William. The revolution was bloodless in that William marched unopposed to London and James hopelessly fled to France. In February 1689, Parliament offered the crown to William and Mary. The new sovereigns accepted Parliament's Bill of Rights, the first true modern constitution. The Bill of Rights enumerated the elementary civil liberties of Englishmen and declared the absolutist practice of Stuarts to be illegal. It epitomized England's evolution into a constitutional monarchy, in which the king was to be governed by parliamentary consent and was subject to law. The Glorious Revolution was the final victory for representative government and religious pluralism in England. No English king after James II tried to govern without Parliament, or in defiance of Parliament. Political parties became a mainstay in English politics. With religion, the Toleration Act of 1689 permitted non-Anglican Protestants to worship freely, but still remained second-class citizens compared to Anglicans.